It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Corinth Holders offensive coordinator and former North Lenior head coach Jimmy Collins. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about your coaching experience?
Sure. I've kind of a little bit long in the tooth, I guess, so to speak. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and after my Navy experience, I decided to go back to school and was actually started coaching by accident. I had a friend of mine that I became close with in Portland, Oregon, where I went to undergrad school at Portland State, and he was coaching a Pop Warner team, and he said, "Hey, why don't you get some college experience? Why don't you try to help me out coaching football?" So I ended up I went to a practice, and I loved it. So I ended up going back to I went to school the next day, changed my major to education. I was studying to be a business major, which now knowing now what I know now, that probably would have never worked. But from there I ended up teaching at a school called Portland Jesuit, which is one of the top programs in the state of Oregon, and learned a lot under my mentor Ken Potter, who's still coaching and has won multiple state titles there, and was just one of the things that he did for me was he said, "Hey, I know you want to be a head coach someday," and so I coached pretty much everything. I was a JV coach. I was an offensive line coach. I was defensive line coach. I was defensive backs coach, just to get the experience, which he thought would be good for my resume. And if I was to ever tell a young coach, that would be get out of your comfort zone and coach a position that you haven't coached at or even played at. So I went from Portland State. I went back to Michigan, where I spent a majority of my career in the state of Michigan. I was my first head coaching job was at New Haven, and was there for 7 years. And I went to a big school in the Detroit area, and then I ended up going back to New Haven. Was at a place called Bad Axe, Michigan, Badaxe, and it's their nickname were the Hatchets. And that was probably my biggest learning experience ever. I took over a program that was one of my interview questions was, "What are you going to do, coach, when you don't win a game in 3 years?" And we ended up winning some games and got some kids out for football, and we did some great things there. But then my kids were young, and I decided to back off, and I went and took a job at I was still teaching in Bad Axe, but I went into Harbor Beach, which was a state powerhouse, and kind of just was a JV coach first, and I just helped varsity out with conditioning and stuff. And we ended up the year that I moved to North Carolina, they ended up winning the state title there. But most of those kids I coached, so it was fun to watch that. And was at Edenton here, Winston-Salem, RJ Reynolds for a little bit of a hiccup, my first stop here in North Carolina. And then we ended up moving back to Michigan. I had a job in the private industry that didn't work out. After 6 months, I realized I'm an educator and football coach. And so I went back to Oscoda, Michigan, and started from the bottom, back up. I was reinventing myself, and started at the JV level at Oscoda, and was the JV softball coach. I got a pretty solid softball background too. So from there, I just kind of toiled around and then wanted to be a head coach again. And there were several jobs in North Carolina, and that's how I came to North Lenior. And that's the kind of my Reader's Digest version of my career.
That's an amazing career. Can you talk about your experience at North Lenior?
Oh, it was great. It was a really rough start. I got hired late, but Gil Respis and Nick Harvey, the assistant superintendent who's in charge of athletics, were, my first year there, we were 0-10. And, if you talk to Brian Hanks, I'm sure you know Brian, he said we were the best 0-10 team in the state because we lost a lot of close games. And it was frustrating. We had to deal with, we had a couple team tragedies with our players prior to the season starting. And, with the hurricane that came through, we were out for 3 weeks, and I had some unrest in my staff, and it was a tough year. But I saw some things going on at the end of the year that I thought that the next year would be pretty decent. We had Kinston beat. We were 0-8, they were 8-0, and I think if you talk to Coach Gieselman, he would say that it was a miracle. I don't want to say a miracle, but they had a good break happen at the end of that game that helped them win the game, and then we were beating Washington in the fourth quarter, but they run that triple op. Perry runs that triple option over there, and we had some breakdowns, and we lost that close game there. So I saw some things happening in a positive way towards the end of the 2018 season that kind of set the table for the 2019 season. And we got to work. I mean, we had some major things we had to do. We had to do a facility improvement. That was number one. Our field got wrecked by the hurricane. Our facility was kind of, I don't want to say it was dumpy. It was just not where it should be. So my staff, including my family, got involved, and we gutted the field house and rebuilt it and worked on the field. And probably one of my biggest things was we hired a guy named Reed Rouse, whose son had gone through here and played at Greensboro College, and he helped me tremendously and helped me tremendously on defense. So that was a huge hire for us. And but I was never told no by administration at North Lenior, and that was one of the things that kind of led us to us tying the school record for most wins. We broke the record for most victories to start a season. We didn't have the ending I was anticipating. Matter of fact, I was pretty disappointed that we lost to South Granville, especially the way we lost to them in the first round of the playoffs. But all in all, when you go from 0-10 to 8-4 and everyone's talking about you, it was a pretty good feeling and a great accomplishment. Not for me, just for me, but the community and the kids and the school. And it was just an awesome time to be at North Lenior last year.
Can you talk about how you turned around that program to make it such a powerhouse that it is now?
Well, I think the kids started believing in what we were doing, and I was selling the weight room, and it was kind of, when you sell the weight room and you don't win, that becomes a little tough. But when we ran a style of offense that we basically knocked people in the mouth. That's basically how everyone's running this, and we went to Power T. And the thing that I think was helpful for us, that when you combine the success we had in the weight room and the attendance that we had in the weight room, and then applied to the field, I think it was just kind of the perfect storm, and it blew up, and the kids just believed in me. I believed in them, and coaching staff was awesome, and the school got behind us, and the community started talking about it. So that's probably the big reason that they had such a good turnaround. And I'm hoping that the person that they hire, takes the ball and run with it, kind of like what I did with Coach Brown from some of the work that he did prior to me getting there.
Can you talk about transitioning now to Corinth Holders and what that process is like for you?
Well, it's kind of weird because it's we're in the middle of this COVID thing, and I haven't really seen the kids a lot. I'm commuting every day to work. Today I work remotely. I have a daughter who's going to be a sophomore there, and she's a volleyball player. So we're kind of like, it's weird because we're not in school. I haven't seen the kids. I haven't been able to forge any one-on-one personal relationships with anyone other than coaching staff. Coach Kavari's been awesome. I'm really going to like working for him and some of his visions that he has for Corinth Holders, and Scotty Williams, our athletic director, Brian Johnson, our principal. I think they've done nothing but welcome me, and so it's pretty exciting. And I think that just the fact that we don't have the kids, and I think as a coach, probably the number one thing you need to do as a coach is forge relationships with your players, and not being able to do that has been a little bit frustrating. But we get to see them next week. We're going to start doing some workouts again, and we'll be installing our offense, and away we go.
Can you talk about the process in transitioning into an offensive coordinator?
Well, it's just by my gut feeling of working with Adam, I can see that it's going to be that it's, I'm kind of like a second head coach, because he's basically said it's my puppy. You know, it's like you do what you want to do with it, and well, that's one of the reasons why the job attracted me so much. Not only was it a beautiful school, and they got a lot of great things going on there, good fit for my family, but when I interviewed with them, and I'm an older guy. I mean, when I have an interview with the school, I'm also interviewing them too, and they just seemed like they wanted me to be around and be there, and they liked what I had to offer, and I loved what they had to offer. And just transitioning into an offensive coordinator role, you're a head coach, but you're just running the offense. You're not, you don't have anything to say about the defense. And I told Adam one of my goals as an offensive coordinator is keep the ball away from the other team's offense. So I'm not a big snap the ball every 15-second guy. I like to, with that 40-second clock rule, I love it, and we can set the pace for games, and I think that's going to help us out. I know I'll drive the fans crazy because we don't sprint up to the line. We walk up to the line. We try to milk that clock down as much as we can, so just to keep the other team offense off the field.
Do you see in the future having Corinth Holders and North Lenior having a scrimmage game?
Oh, I would love it. As a matter of fact, it was weird because last year, 2019, we scrimmaged at Triple S, and what happened was the Triple S got a new coach, and Triple S gave and it was a big scrimmage. I mean, there were a lot of teams there, and so Triple S gave Corinth Holders that scrimmage, and while I was still a head coach at North Lenior, I had inked us into going up there to scrimmage. So would I see us playing each other on the schedule? Probably not, because they're 4A, we're 2A, and it's like an hour drive, and I think North Lenior I think what Coach Massey was going to do, our athletic director, was try to get some local teams, and I think Corinth wants to do the same. So, but I could see us scrimmaging for sure, because it would be I think it would be kind of a fun deal, because I love the kids at North Lenior. That was probably the hardest thing for me to do was leave the kids. So I'd love to see them and coach against them for sure.
Who are some of your former players that have now made it to the college level?
Well, I've had some pretty good success. I had a lot of kids in Michigan play college football, and I had 3 kids play in the NFL. Actually, 2 kids that played in the NFL. One was played in the CFL, who's now the head basketball coach at the school I was at, and he won a state title. So I'm very proud of him. And Matt Murphy, kid played 8 years in the NFL, played at Maryland, was an awesome player, but I'm probably most proud of him by the fact he's got 3 beautiful kids and has a great career outside of the game of football. Eric Fowler played for the Lions for a little bit. He set all the Division II passing records while I was at Grand Valley State University up in Michigan. And then, just recently I got Chris Russell, my offensive and defensive lineman from North Lenior, is playing at Chowan, and so is Nijay Kuntz, who's the running back, and Trey Olds, our defensive back, who was a first-year player last year. But if that kid would have played all 4 years, like God knows where he would have been, because he was one of our defensive stalwarts last year, and that's Trey Olds. But those guys are up at Chowan, and we're really proud of them, and looking forward to seeing them. It looks like they may be playing in the spring, so we'll see how that goes. But I'm looking forward. There's a lot of kids at Corinth. I mean, our offensive line has got some hosses on it, and I'm thinking, and Coach Kavari's already talked about what kids he feels can play at the next level. So I'm looking forward to getting involved in that and promoting them as much as we can.
What advice would you give upcoming high school coaches looking to get into the profession?
What should I suggest them that they do?
Mm-hmm.
What I would say is just be a part of the Coaches Association, go to as many clinics, visit schools. That's early on in my career. I was in my spring, basically between coaching baseball, which I was a baseball coach at the time. I was visiting, going on campus. Tom Milanoff, the head football coach at Warren Mott, he's still there. He replaced me when I was at Warren Mott. We flew out to Washington State and visited Washington State University back when Coach Price was there. And one of our coach's brothers was a defense coordinator there at Washington State. And we just went out there for a week and So go out there and talk to coaches, because they'll they're more than glad to go to clinics and coach a lot of different positions. That's probably one of the biggest things, especially if they aspire to be a head coach, because that looks really good on your resume, and it makes you a better coach if you know what's going on the other side of the ball and on other positions on the field.
Where can my listeners find you at on social media?
Well, I'm on Facebook with my wife. It's under Christy and Jim Collins. And then I was basically on with NL football. So basically Facebook. I kind of just got off Twitter. Twitter seems like it's a kind of a rough place right now. So I've kind of backed away from Twitter, and I'm just gonna be on Facebook with my wife and kind of enjoy what Corinth Holders does with their social media with Scotty and Coach Cavari. So that's pretty much where, and they can always email me. I'm Coach JP Collins at gmail.com.
Thank you again, Coach Collins, for your interview, and best of luck at Corinth Holders this upcoming year.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate your time, and go Pirates.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Collins, for your interview.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.